Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? Maybe you have a unique experience you'd like to share as a guest. Podmatch helps you connect with guests and hosts who have similar interests, experiences, and goals, making sure that each connection is meaningful and impactful. Thanks to Podmatch, I've connected with parents and caregivers worldwide and supported them in sharing their stories on Quiet Connection. If you'd like to check them out, visit www.joinpodmatch.com/Quiet Connection Podcast and learn more. Welcome to Quiet Connection, a podcast dedicated to ending the stigma around postpartum mental health. I'm Chelsea. This week, I'm connecting with Amanda as she shares her journey through emotional turmoil, motherhood, and the importance of inner child work. She discusses the catalysts that led her to explore deeper healing practices, including breathwork and somatic therapy. Throughout our chat, she emphasizes the need for community support among mothers, the complexities of navigating postpartum rage, and the transformative power of trusting one's intuition. Here's Amanda. Hello! Today I'm here with Amanda. Amanda, how are you?
I'm good. We are getting rolling on a Friday morning, 8 a.m.
Yeah.
Sharp.
It's 8 a.m. for you. It's 9 a.m. for me, but it was cutting it close. Let me tell you, getting the kids off to school and dropped off. Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I have a partner for that, so hats off to him.
Yeah, mine's out the door by like 5:30 in the morning. So
bless it.
It's all on me.
Yeah. Then bless you then, actually.
Yeah. Hashtag stay-at-home mom life. Amanda, I'm excited to have you. I'm excited to connect with you. I'm already getting like really good energy from you, so this is great.
Yeah.
I'll start off by asking you to sort of introduce yourself a little bit and tell us who you were before you were a mom.
Okay. I am learning that I'm preferring these types of intros than the host reading it, because the bio that I give podcasts is quite exhaustive, and then I feel like a pompous ass when I get done and they're like, here's Amanda, and I'm like, everyone has turned it off. They're like, no, I'm not listening to this chick. So thank you for letting me intro myself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so currently I am a contracted physical therapist for pediatric oncology patients. But I'm traditionally trained as a physical therapist. But since 2020, I dove into some deeper layers of my own healing, and then I became certified in a specific modality for somatic inner child work. I'm also a breathwork facilitator. And yeah, that's taken me up to this point currently, where I am supporting women, overwhelmed moms, and some others sprinkled in there with their own journey and connecting back to themselves, their body, and their inner child to do some really incredible and transformative work. But yeah, I was in a writing class last night, which was so healing and fun and creative. So this is pre-mom question is quite timely, because we wrote on these topics just a little bit last night. So before I was a mom, I was someone that had no idea how much I had not traversed in my own, what I had experienced. Like, I had obviously lived my life, quote unquote, but I had not felt through the things that I had experienced on, like, I would say a 10% level. Like, it was literally my actual body was floating through the experience, but I was not present to a lot of it at all. And I was really living and operating under so many learnings, behaviors, patterns, conditioning that were not mine. Like, just full stop. They were not mine.
Yeah.
They were from mom and dad. And it had taken me so far in life, because I was in the gifts of some of those patterns and I had made it work for me, quote unquote, that I was not conscious to how debilitating it was going to be for me as I entered motherhood, but also how I was really just not operating in my truth and my essence. Because those words, if you were to say that to me before I became a mom at 26, I would have been like, okay, you and your crystals can just go walk down the street. That was not even in my realm. I was entrenched in mindset work. I was entrenched in Western medicine. And there's nothing wrong with either of those. But I realized as I was cracked open in motherhood that only was taking me so far. And so, yeah, I was a type A overachiever, control freak, super happy on the outside, crumbling on the inside, projecting a lot of that hurt and anger onto my partner behind closed doors, like all the things. Like it was just Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, but only to a trusted few, which was really honestly one. And that was my partner, David.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not uncommon at all. I hear that so much, that like before we were parents, especially if we were like, if we started our journey into parenting younger. I mean, I was 26 too,
Yeah.
and I still consider that younger.
Oh,
But
yeah.
like you just kind of like floating through life, like not necessarily
checking all the boxes.
Yeah.
Married at 21, babies at 26, had the job, had the house, and then you were like, wait a second.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like you're telling my story. Yes.
Yeah.
In regard to that, it kind of sounds like were kids on your radar? They were part of the plan?
No, absolutely.
Oh,
Well, I mean, yes, they were on my radar because my husband wanted them. I was terrified to have children. I did not want to have children. I was going to have children out of devotion and love to my partner and be like, I guess I'll just raw dog this experience because I could be, old and gray and not have kids. And I use this analogy. I used it yesterday with somebody, and then I shared it with my husband when we were at Disney, is that I find that when someone has a large part of them that doesn't want to do something, but then they still have enough of something that they do also want to do something. For instance, at Disney, it was my 10-year-old. He was terrified to go on the Tower of Terror, but he never said, get me out of here. I want to leave. He just kept saying how scared he was. So I knew that there was a larger part of him that said, I really want to do this, but I'm really scared. And so I think that was me, is that I never said, if you make me have kids, I'll leave. But it was I am so terrified that I'm afraid to say, I can't do this. I don't want to do this. And so I just kind of went along for the ride.
Yeah. Yeah. And like checking the boxes almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's such an interesting way to put it too. My mom brain just fried for a second. This usually doesn't happen this early.
Yeah.
Seriously, like it usually doesn't derail this quick. So when did that shift for you? Like, did you guys have a conversation? Was it pre-planned? Or did it just happen?
In the infinite wisdom of my partner, he was like, could feel it. And he knew that, again, since he had been with me for 4 or 5 years, he knew I cannot make her do anything. I cannot push her towards anything. And so he lightly said, hey, we're younger. Let's give it 5 years. Let's just give it 5 years. And like the plan will be to start having kids at 5 years. Okay, cool. Perfect. I'm 22. I'm like, see you in 5 years, bro. And then it got to be 5.5 years. And he was like, hey, so remember that conversation we had? And so again, he had to revisit it and had to lovingly and gently be like, hey, this is okay. Like kind of like gently hurting me. Like, hey, we're going to turn now, And so, yeah, that kind of started the journey of having kids. And we had a little bit of trouble initially having kids. And yeah, that bought me a little bit of time, but it also ushered in the new shadow of something that I have no control over. And I am not, quote unquote, good at it. My body is not responding the way that it's supposed to. And so that was almost this like foreshadowing of like, you have no idea what is about to be open to you.
Yeah.
And yeah, that really, really was kind of the catalyst for what continued to transpire in the next 5 to 6 years.
Yeah. Jumping back just a tiny bit, because now I remember what I was going to ask you. What was it that was kind of holding you back before that? Or were you just content? Like, yeah, I don't need this in my life.
Wounding and experience.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I'm not prepared to do that. I don't know how to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to impose my lack or shortcomings onto some innocent being.
Yeah.
Full stop. I think I probably in so many words said that, or David just knew from what he had seen and experienced. And again, it wasn't from a place of, I won't touch that. It's that I had never been shown or given a light of like, oh, this is how you tackle that. Because I'm not afraid of like, you tell me I can't do something. Oh, girl, just watch out, but no one had ever offered that. Like, if you want to address this, this is how you would do that. Like I had a freaking TSA pre-check clear pass in therapy. Like I was the girl that was like, yep, I've been here before for like 10 years. And like none of that, this personal development, the self-help, the multi-level marketing companies like that were supportive in your personal development, none of that was touching it. I was coming back again and again and again and again and again to the same limiting beliefs, the same patterns, the same projection. And I was like, well, apparently I'm just broken. And so I can't have kids because I'm doing all the things. And it just didn't work out for me. That's kind of what I had sold myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a really harmful narrative to when you're hearing it from your own voice. I mean, it's always harmful when you're hearing it from others as well, but when your own voice is telling you,
yeah,
I'm not good enough.
Yeah. And it was one of those things. This is where it's really interesting. I have rebelled so hard into the collapse and the woe is me, and there's something wrong with me, quote unquote, that I was just like, yep, I've actually done it all. And it's just not for me. I had risen above an ego to be like, I'm not going to sit here and cry about it. I've done the work. It's just not for me. And that again is a place of guarding and protection. And I didn't know until I knew that that's what that was. So yeah, I was kind of flying through life being like, oh yeah, I mean, this is why I'm having fertility issues, just not meant to be, doing all the things I'm supposed to. Yet there was this inner boil. And so what I was saying was not actually energetically what was matching that. And so it was, quite the journey.
Self-preservation. It's a defense mechanism for sure.
Yes.
So take us through that journey when obviously, like you said, it took you a little while. It wasn't easy. What was the experience like when you finally did get pregnant and you were like, oh, okay, maybe I can do this, I guess.
Yeah. So, and I say this, I say this very lightly. I don't want to minimize what we experienced, but in the vast majority of what people are experiencing now with infertility, it was nothing. I took a couple medications. We were really diligent about ultrasounds and when I was ovulating, and then we did the thing at home and it worked, but it took a little bit of extra oomph. But yeah, I think we were so swept up in the I achieved it and we have to keep it secret for a little while. I don't think I even had the pause or the thought to be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be a mom. It was one more thing to conquer, one more thing to do and achieve. And how can I fit this in my life? Because nothing was changing. I mean, I wasn't drinking anymore, but I was still working out 5 days a week, 6 days a week. I was still working full time. I was doing the thing almost again in that mindset of proving that I can do it all. And I think that things started to trickle in a little bit about when people would send us things and I started to get these little pings in my heart space where I was like, what is that? Shut that down. We're not going to feel that. And so again, there's these little bitty catalysts that brought me to my knees eventually, that I can see now were the little bitty bits of crumbs that, God, the universe, whoever was putting in my path to be again, giving you little apps on this, little tasters. And it's for you to realize what there is that's going to be required of you and that you're going to get to feel in this whole process.
Yeah. So much of that resonates with me personally. I'm curious too, do you feel like you got to enjoy pregnancy at all?
Like I said, I was not that girl that was being I mean, I remember being tired.
Yeah.
And I remember being a little bit nauseous, but we did a Bradley method birthing class. I had all of the sheets. I was tracking what I was eating to make sure I was getting enough protein and greens. I mean, I was this poster child of ridiculous pregnancy, doing all of the CrossFit workouts I had been doing before. I mean, obviously modifying in second trimester and third, but I remember I was back squatting 160 with Christopher, and I was working out 2 days before I went into labor.
Wow.
So again, it wasn't, none of that I feel was dangerous. I wasn't putting myself in danger, but I was operating at a very high level. And now I realize that is the gift in that is that it got me through in some sort of semblance of sanity. But I also now realize I don't have to be operating in that high of a level to also experience presence and peace and really just the things that I want to feel.
Yeah. And it's almost exactly how you explained before, how you were explaining your life. You were just kind of in it. You weren't really living in the experience. You're just oh, I'm pregnant and life goes on. And I'm going to do all of these things.
1,000%. Because I wasn't connecting to, I'm not one of those people that connect to something unless it's in front of me.
Yeah.
And that's babies or people. I mean, we're connecting now, but you know what I mean? And it's kind of an out of sight, out of mind, which for some women are what are you talking about? I don't even identify with that. This is a being. This is my person. And I'm again, like it was literally as if you've been given a task, almost like that high school. You have this egg. You are like going to keep up with it. You're not going to let it crack, and you're going to get an A at the end. And I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be amazing. I'm going to get an A+ in this, So, very mechanical.
Yeah, but that makes sense. That like with everything that you're saying, that follows the same pattern. Comes time for baby to make his appearance. What was that like? Because I'm sure that was a big all of
Yeah.
a sudden here he is.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that was the genesis of the breaking open without me even knowing. It was probably the first somatic experience that I was actually aware of now or present to. We had a midwife and we had our kids at home. Again, now seeing all of the through lines, like I told you, I was entrenched in like Western medicine mindset, what everybody else was doing, expectations, whatever. And I had this intuitive nudge. I had this vision. I don't even think I was pregnant yet. And I envisioned holding my kid in my sleigh bed that we had at our old house. And I was like, that's weird. That's interesting. Why would I picture that so vividly? And again, I trusted my intuition. Again, at that time, did not know what that was. Thought I was just seeing visions, which is weird for me at that time. And started to like put one foot in front of the other and get these callings of like, I'm just going to be curious about something. And that's the only reason why we had a midwife, was because I was a healthy individual and we really clicked with the midwife and the nurse that was like operating. We had a backup OB that everything was in line. And yet I was starting to evolve into this person that could trust something that she needed and wanted. Mm-hmm. And so that was a little bit, again, I wasn't allowing myself to be really present to the power of that. But seeing that now, I was like, ooh, wow. So fast forward, he was due Christmas Eve. My water broke that night, Christmas Eve.
Wow.
And so I'm like David is messaging our midwife 5 a.m. Christmas Day. And he came at 11:08 Christmas Day. So relatively short birth. The only thing that I'll share about that is someone that's a huge planner. I did nothing that I planned. It was completely silent. Do not touch me. Do not talk to me. There's a lot of interesting like visions and the way that I experience that I now see as, again, God, spirit guides taking me through that experience. But the biggest thing that I will always be with me is when I finally birthed him, I could not stop. It wasn't screaming, but I could not stop vocalizing. I could not stop. I was just crying, but crying to a point where I was like, I don't even want to do it in the microphone because it would, the listeners will be like, oh my God, stop it. But it was this vocalization where something had opened up and needed to run through me. And again, for some of your listeners, this may feel like very esoteric and very like, what the hell is she talking about? But it was the first time that I think that type of power, but also that type of hurt, emotional, energetic, physical, all was like married into one and was allowed to exit out of me because I had held on to experiences in my past up until that point where you just couldn't any longer. And I remember my midwife was like, Amanda, he's here. You don't have to yell anymore. And I wasn't even present to the fact that I was doing what I was doing. And she just put a hand on my chest or my shoulder and she was like, you're safe. You're okay. Like he's right here. And it was like, until then, like it just snapped. And I was like, oh wait, he is. And I am. And we are. Okay. Yeah. And so again, like that in hindsight was a really, really powerful beginning to a new chapter.
Yeah. So we talk a lot about how when you have a baby, and it doesn't matter if it's your first, your second, or your third, like you're not only birthing that child, you're birthing a new version of yourself.
Yes.
And like, what a powerful, like vocal manifestation of that. Like you birthed your son, and then you were also like releasing so much that had been pent up and you didn't even realize you were doing it.
No. And it happened again with my daughter as well, because this journey didn't start until she was about 2.5 and he was 5. So again, like it was almost as if like God knew, like I've got to just give her this little, just like David, like I have to drop these things slowly into her awareness because I'm gonna just ruin her if we give it to her all at once, Yeah. But yeah, that was very much it. And I don't remember, at one time I remembered what I kept saying, but it was very much an embodiment of something has been cracked open and is now like running through me, finally
Yeah.
allowed to like flow through me.
Yeah. I'm curious how that impacted those first, they call it the golden hour. I never really got to experience that, but like, did that affect those first few hours, those first few days? Like, or were you able to, once the midwife was like, you're safe, you're here, he's here, were you able to drop back in and connect?
Again, I think that I was so compartmentalized in that moment is that like I noticed that. And then it's like we had to get to work. Like, okay, we got to get you cleaned up. Okay, we gotta do a little bit of sewing up. We gotta go get you in the shower. It was like presents. What the hell was that? It's back to work. So I didn't stay with it for a really long time. I do remember, again, like feeling those like surges of like emotion and also a little bit of terror where I was like, you guys have been here for like 2 hours after the baby's born. Like you're leaving, you're coming back when? Tomorrow? We're in charge. Oh, okay. Like there was a little
Yeah.
bit of that took over with my husband and I. And again, it was fine. And we knew that we could have called them whenever we needed it. But it was like, oh, it's go time in a completely different way. And again, as parents, what do? You stuff your needs and you stuff what's present for you and you take care of the thing that's in front of you. And so I don't necessarily like blame or shame myself for that, for not staying in the bubble of like, what is this? But yeah, I think I've been able to have a lot more access to that retrospectively than in the moment.
That makes total sense. I'm just, yeah, you explained. I'm so glad, like you said, that I let you introduce yourself because it's all fitting so perfectly in this story of your journey. Like this type A, this like, this is a task. I'm going to do it and it's going to get done the best. I'm going to do it the best way that I can. And emotion may not necessarily play a part in that.
Yeah.
So talk to me about what we call the fourth trimester. Talk to me about those first few weeks with, yeah, I know. So
Yeah.
listeners, that was the very audible eye roll.
Yes. Yes.
Talk to me about what that transition was like, because like you said, like when you were pregnant, you didn't necessarily have a connection, but now here he is, and you got a job to do.
Yeah. Again, I'm going to be honest because I have no shame in anything that I've experienced. I feel like that there were moments, like little glimmers of connection. But again, he was a task for me to take care of and do.
Mm-hmm.
So like, did I love like waking up or having moments where I was like, getting a chest nap? Like, of course, yeah, there were times when that would glimmer in, but I'm trying to think now. There was not this like, Simba moment where I'm like holding him up overhead. I can't believe that you're here. I am one that really, really struggles with lack of sleep. And so with the components of lack of sleep, we had a little bit of like, latching issues, the normal kind of stuff that some people go through. But yeah, I think I was just in autopilot. And then I remember kind of fast forwarding to, it was literally 6 months to the day. I remember I was driving down the main street that we drive to go back to our house. He was born on the 25th. It was 6 months. So it was like June 25th. And I remember feeling this enormous surge of heat and what I now know to be as rage as I'm like arm on the steering wheel, arm in the passy of his mouth, like trying to hold that. And I remember looking at, it's as if it happened yesterday, looking at the clock with the date next to it and being like, it's been 6 months, and feeling that shift like that and being like, this is something new. And I have no idea what this is, but it's scaring me just a little bit. And so again, like I went back to the gym a month after I had him and started doing light stuff. Like it was, again, until I fully surrendered to the healing work that I experienced in 2020, we just were like business as usual. Let's just get this done. And so nothing was like hugely traumatic or going down just yet in those first 6 months. It was, I would say, pretty typical, but it was only opening myself up to further the dysfunction that was just ahead of that.
Right. And you like briefly mentioned it, like you didn't even start to sort of realize what any of this was until after your second was born. Is that true?
Yeah. And I think that came from like the deeper healing work that I was doing. Like I knew that I was angry. My like antepartum, like before I had my second, was horrific. Like the emotions that I was feeling, I felt like a crazy person. Like I literally felt like the undoing was happening because of all the hormones prior to. And then, yeah, like, I mean, it was really, really tough. Like I would say, I remember just like sitting on my bed, just like wailing in tears because I just was not the person that I wanted to be. I didn't feel the things that I felt like I should. I was drowning in shame and guilt. And, you know, my husband was just there like holding it all up. And I didn't want that either, you know? So it was definitely like this compounding effect of like, I'm doing it. And then I'm pretending like I'm doing it, but I'm not really doing it, you know?
Yeah. Sort of going back a little bit again, because that was sort of your experience, and because with your first, like, you were just doing it, you were doing the thing. How did the decision come about to have another? Was
Oh,
it something?
again, like this, if you're not sensing a pattern, like it was just because it was what it was expected. It was just
Okay.
because we're going to have another. We're not going to have probably more than that, but we're going to have two. And then it was like,
Yeah.
you know, we had a miscarriage in between the two, which was an interesting experience to go through. And essentially we had said, because we had the fertility issues before, I was like, I'm not going on birth control. That can like F all the way off, because that was
Yeah.
part of the reason why we got into the situation that we got into previously. And so we were just like, we're just going to trust that whenever we're supposed to, we will. And then after we're done, we'll take care of that. So, so yeah, we had the miscarriage in between Christopher and Kennedy. And then, yeah, Kennedy was going to come about 2.5 years after Christopher was born. And we were like, okay, cool. Like, you know, Google, what's the best age to have la la la. So, you know, it was not some sort of beautifully emotional, heartfelt plan. It was just like, this is
This
what
is
we're
what's
doing.
next. This
Yeah.
is the checklist.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, let's talk about it a little bit. So you never really got into what was going on with your first pregnancy and what was going on with your motherhood the first time around, and now you're deciding to do it all over again. I'm also curious if you were aware of PMADs, of postpartum depression or perinatal depression. You were
Oh
aware of
yeah,
those beforehand.
I had my placenta encapsulated. I was
Oh
also
yeah.
terrified. That was part of having the kids, is being terrified of what I was going to feel like afterwards. This was not
Okay.
like earth-shattering new information. I was like, oh yeah, this is probably going to happen. And I think that's when I looked at the clock and saw, oh wow, like I've been keeping things together for 6 months and this is where it turns. I remember just
Yeah.
like feeling that. And don't get me wrong, like I had started on prescription meds at 6 months after my first, and I had been going to therapy. I had been, you know, seeing a mentor through the church. I had been like, it wasn't like I was just sitting there being like, this is just the way that it is. I was, again, continuing to like, what am I supposed to be doing? I continued working out at a high level, bringing my kids to the gym 5 to 6 days a week, which is like just wild.
Yeah.
You know, I was doing whatever I knew in the past that had quote unquote worked. And I'd continue to just try to apply it to my daily life as it was.
Yeah. So you were taking all the steps. You knew you had an idea of what could be and maybe what was happening. Do you feel like part of you was doing that thing like you mentioned before, just like pushing it into a box?
Oh
Like,
yeah, shoving
oh,
it
I've
down.
got
I'm almost
yeah.
like, I'm just going to be really honest. Like it's all kind of coming up right now, is that I'm just like how much empathy I have for her, and how much like, damn, like you were so lost,
Yeah.
like so lost, and had never been given the tools, and had an incredibly supportive partner. But like, again, that's where it seems so clear, is like no one had ever modeled to me any of the things that I actually needed to
Mhm.
slow the F down, to ask for help, to just feel the feel. Like so many moms now would just benefit, and they would go from maybe a 10 to a 7 in the, you know, feelings department or the overwhelmed department just by doing those things. But that wasn't available to me because I didn't believe that that would work or that that was safe. And so it's
Yeah.
just like, I don't allow myself to connect back to those scenes and those seasons very often, because I see now like how much that pain was just stuffed and compressed and like just pushed down, for sure.
Yeah. You mentioned that your partner was super supportive. Did you have any support outside of that? You said like you were going to, I mean, you were going to your church, you were doing things like that, but in terms of like a support network or a village, we like to use that term, which doesn't actually exist here in the US.
Yeah.
Did you have any of that?
I mean, we had a huge group of CrossFit friends. Everything was available to me, but I was keeping it at arm's length.
Okay.
It was all superficial because, again, what did I learn? Don't let people in. People are unsafe. People will let you down. People won't love you if they really know who you are. Like, it didn't matter. This is the part of, like, I love community, and this is something that I'm continuing to, like, lean into, the community piece. But if you're not right, you can't receive the gift of community. And I mean, right, as in, like, if your heart can't be open, if it feels unsafe, if you have wounding and unlearning to do, like, you can have the greatest community. I did have a great community. I still have a great community. I'm still continuing to be called forward in I hate this word, but, like, submission to that, like the opening to that, the leaning into that.
Acceptance, like,
Yes.
just acceptance. Yeah. Rather than submission, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because everybody experiences this differently and everything's going to resonate with someone in a different way. What you talked about, the rage, you talked about the anger, you talked about the depression. How did that manifest for you? What did it look like?
Now I know that I was having a lot of, like, sensation-based symptoms. Like, I would feel the biggest just surges of, like, heat and tension, usually in my upper half. So it would, like, start in my chest, up into my face, into my arms, and it would be all that I could have to just, like, stifle it back down. Um, I also found that, I mean, I'm an open book. So, like, my oldest and even my youngest, when they would cry or when they would not go down for their nap, you saw the worst version of me. Like, now, did I ever abuse them? Of course not. But, like, the energy behind my presence was like, you are a nuisance. You are a bother. You are, like, keeping me from one of my coping strategies, which is sleeping and napping. And I'm angry about it. And so, like, yeah, I mean, reactivity with them, projection on my husband, everything always being his fault, not feeling like I have enough support, being mad about not having enough support, even though I wouldn't allow anybody to support me, overworking, overdoing, anything that could curb me spouting off and showing these, like, rageful sides to anybody else. That's what I was doing. And again, I think that I started to feel some of that collapse in between Christopher and Kennedy when I was, like, just crying all the time. That was probably one of the only times that I felt true. If you follow the polyvagal theory, like, I was in that ventral vagal, like, state of just nothingness, of, like, I was not there. I mean, David could even tell that, like, I'm seeing through you, like, there's nothing there. So yeah, that was my journey. And now, even with the work on board, it's one of my gifts. Like, I can turn on that fire in a second, but I know how to harness it. I know how to move it. And I know when and where is appropriate and not appropriate to do it. So it's not as if mom rage has gone away from me.
Yeah.
Like, that, again, it's part of me, but I get to use that in a really, really healthy way now.
Yeah. What was the catalyst for that? What was the catalyst for the switch when it came to be like, okay, maybe I need to explore this deeper, or I have to face whatever this is head on?
Yeah. And again, in 2020, it was this, and even leading up to that, 2018, after I had Kennedy, it was like, I started to hear this whisper of, like, there's something else out there, just keep going. There's something else out there, just keep going. And I kept just hearing that voice, and again, putting one foot in front of the other. And then it wasn't until 2019 that I was walking down the street, listening to a CrossFit podcast, and my now mentor was on that platform talking about inner child healing. And I was like, okay, I'm sorry. I thought we were talking about, like, protein powders and barbell cycling and, carb whatevering. And she opened me up to this world of, like, no one had ever, in all the years of therapy, talked about any sort of, like, being in your body, somatic work, inner child healing, reparenting. I was like, what? I've just been, like, projecting my hurt and blame onto my parents as well. And really just, like, not re-traumatizing myself, but, like, rehashing the same stories over and over again and the same hurts, and not actually moving through it. And so through that work, the crumbling of all of the facade and the walls and the guarding allowed me to create a new foundation that allowed that anger and that fire to be there, but in a much more grounded and present way.
Inner child work is something that I think is still, you said it earlier, like, some of your listeners might think, like, okay, like, put your crystals away or whatever, but, like, it's something that for so many of us, I never assume age, but I fall into the elder millennial age group. And for a lot of us, we are realizing now in our late 30s, early 40s, that we have a lot of shit to sort through and
Yes.
inner child work to go through and reparenting. And so it's so interesting the way that you came into that, though, was through this
Oh, yeah.
CrossFit podcast.
Yeah, it's why, and I think that that's, that's where you get to laugh at that shit, is be like,
Yeah.
"Oh yeah, God, okay, got it. That's fun."
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Oh, thank
really?
you.
Like, this is the only thing that's going to get her like, we know that she's going to be listening to this podcast, so let's just drop this in here, And I love that you're bringing up that point. I actually brought it up in a previous podcast that I was on with someone else. Is this? You're right. This is the first generation that we are parenting while also learning to reparent ourselves, and there are certain non-negotiables that are now required of us to be able to do that in a really healthy, grounded way. And it is no joke. Like, it is. My mentor says, healing is like slaying a dragon in a forest. It's not like walking on a sidewalk on a sunny day. And so imagining, slaying these dragons within while also attempting to be with the dragon that is your 2-year-old that will not get
Yes.
rest, it's like, no wonder your nervous system is overwhelmed, right? And that's why I think so many women, again, hundreds of women that I've talked to in DMs on Instagram are like, I need something different. And this is not to shit on traditional therapy. It's not to shit on books or like Tony Robbins or any of that stuff. Like, that stuff gets to be here. And we are learning that we cannot think ourselves into being a present parent. We cannot think ourselves away from the rage and the anger and the frustration that we have. Because the other component to this is that, and you alluded to this earlier, is the lack of community. Unless you are going to drop your life and go to a small village in Central America or to Europe or to Spain or wherever and completely take up the culture that is there, it is likely that you are going to find that the community is not what it is in other places. And so we can either sit here in the States and we can be frustrated and angry about it, or we can equip ourselves with things that are needed to be able to traverse that reality. And that is something that, again, has dropped into my awareness in this last week, and that I am feeling really called to in the later half of this year to start a community group around mom rage and frustration, because there is not spaces for it. And there's so much shame around it that if that feels like a gift of mine, that I'm like, oh yeah, bring it all. Like, I'll hold it and we'll all be able to witness to it. Then why not start doing that? So it is so complex for us elder millennials, but it gets to be, right. Like,
yes.
Too much is given, much is expected. Like, it's been my whole life's work to be like, tell me I can't do that. Right. I'm going to find a way. And so I think that we have a lot of really, really empowered women that are now reconnecting to their intuition, but also reconnecting to their power and being like, this is not okay.
Yes.
And I'm changing this. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful thing to watch. And it's a complex thing to watch as well, because like you said, it's not easy. It's absolutely a battle. And I think that it's so encouraging, and I'm so excited to hear that you're going to be building this community as this year progresses, because that's kind of my whole thing with everyone that I talk about. It's like, we're promised these villages, they don't exist. So you have to build it yourself.
Yeah.
And that sucks. Like, I'm not saying, like, I don't say it as a lecture. I don't say it as a negative thing. It's more of an empowerment. Like, you're not going to find it. You've got to build it.
Yeah. And sometimes just ask for it. Like, in my breathwork journey, we haven't even touched this, but like in my breathwork journey, I came back from the retreat that I was initially a part of after the 90-day face melting that I got from my mentor and her program that she had. And I was like, I'm never going to be able to do breath work in my community. There's no one doing it like me, or doing it like what I just experienced. And I will be damned if a week later, the movement gym that I was a part of was going to a breathwork session that then opened me up to my now breathwork mentor. So again, ask and you shall receive. Like, I hate to throw out these biblical quotes, but it's one of those things where I want people to take what you just said and not collapse into, it's too hard, it's too much. A community has to look like this. A community can be like I've done, where I've deepened my relationship and my connection with one particular friend. And I know, and she knows, that we can go back and forth on that.
Mm-hmm.
It can also look like virtual platform friends. You know what I mean? Like your community and your tribe can look very different, and it may look very different than what you imagined it to, but it's there as it's supposed to be for you. And one other part that I'll open up from a conversation that I had with a mom yesterday is that the other part is when you are aware and accepting that this community isn't there, or not in the way you want it, it also opens up these wounds that like your mom or dad could be physically present. They could live in the same town as you, but they don't know and can't give you emotionally what you need because of what they haven't learned yet either.
Mm-hmm.
So it motherhood opens up this like, I'm caring for this small child, but I still, the inner one within, wants to be mothered, wants to be cooked for, wants to be held, wants to be taken care of and seen and witnessed. And our parents don't have that capacity, a lot of them. They just don't. And so we
Yep.
have to be faced with that and the hurt and the grieving that goes with that, which again, you know, compounded effect. Like I already have this crying child. Why do I then want to also feel the grief that could be present for me? So we're not saying it's easy, but we're saying
No.
that it's definitely needed and very much worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that this is 100% not about me, but like you keep bringing up the 2-year-old. I currently have a 2-year-old. I have a 2-year-old and a 9-year-old, and a 9-year-old who's going through puberty. So it's basically like having 2-year-olds.
Yeah.
And reparenting myself. And I am just barely entering into inner child work. I came upon it in an unexpected way as well, not where I thought I would.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, when you're in those moments where everybody's screaming or everybody's crying and I'm overwhelmed and I'm overstimulated, but I was never given the tools to handle that. I'm learning those now along with my children, accepting that there's no shame in that. I'm not a bad mom. You're not a bad mom. But that, yeah, this experience is hard, but not impossible.
Mm-hmm.
Not impossible. And it's
Yep.
kind of beautiful that we get to take this journey with our kids.
1,000%, because the thing that you don't realize, this is a long game. And so though you may have lost your shit on a Friday at 8:30, you also get to gift your kid the repair that maybe you never got to experience on Friday at 3:30.
Yep.
And you also get to model the lack of perfection that's needed. If I've had one mom, I've had 12 moms be like, but my mom did it all. Yeah, great. And she was probably really amazing at stuffing it all down and putting on the happy face because that's what she learned. But what did you feel from her? You felt that she was lonely. You wondered why she felt so like empty.
Yeah.
It's because she was stuffing it or dissociating it. And so, yes, did she provide everything for you? Absolutely. But now you are feeling the effects of, and maybe wanting to rebel against having to do it all. And what was the cost of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that we're having this conversation too, because, and again, it's not fully focused on postpartum rage, but like a lot of it is. And it's one of the perinatal mood and anxiety disorders that isn't talked about enough, I don't think, because it's not that it never existed, but it wasn't necessarily as recognized. I'm not even going to say we all. Many of us have heard of postpartum depression. Some of us have heard of postpartum anxiety. Now we're learning about postpartum and perinatal OCD. We're learning about postpartum and perinatal psychosis and rage and all of these things. And I think it's so important to talk about all of them, and rage especially, because the guilt that comes along with that may be some of the hardest to deal with. And I'm saying that from a personal standpoint. I'm not sure how you feel, but like when I was experiencing postpartum anxiety and depression, I didn't have the capability to feel bad about how I was presenting myself.
Mm-hmm.
But when I'm overstimulated and I am mad and ragey and hot and not my regulated self,
Yeah.
that guilt is felt deep.
Yeah. And it's
in a
based
very
upon,
different way.
It's based upon what you learned or what was modeled from mom and dad, but also culturally, societally. Don't be an angry mom. Don't be an angry woman. You know, don't express frustration. You're not allowed to feel that. And to not walk back, but to like get back to one of the things that you shared about postpartum anxiety is I find that rage is a byproduct of the anxiety. And for me, and some people may resonate with this, is that you are either usually, whether it's depression or anxiety, you respond to that in either a collapse or hypoactivated state or a hyperactivated state. And so some people may collapse, which is what it sounds like that you did, into the anxiety and the depression, where some people that hold this, why am I feeling this way? I shouldn't feel this way, go into the upregulated of like turning inward towards self, of like, you're doing it wrong. There's something wrong with you. And so even in my postpartum, what I would imagine would have been considered anxiety and depression, rage was what came out for me. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, all of it are just coping strategies for trying to manage what is happening on a sensation level. And that is a lot of the work that we touch upon and sometimes have to stay on for weeks with clients, is because you can have all of these awarenesses, but if you cannot from a somatic level go through the second stage of healing, which is acceptance, like holding these sensations in your body, there's really no healing that can occur yet, because you don't have the capacity. Your system doesn't have the capacity to hold what's there. And so a lot of women, like, we won't even necessarily get into like traditional somatic reparenting or inner child work yet, because all we're doing is allowing their system to come online with the safety that is their sensations. And just some somatic tracing, they can be like, oh, wow, I feel so much more empowered. Like, I'm not at a 10 all the time. I'm at like a 5 or a 6. Because let's also be honest, hormonally, we want things to go away.
Yes.
Your hormones are all over the map for the first 2 years after like
Yes.
you've had a kid. So it's about triaging and supporting yourself through that, not numbing out from it. So I'm not saying, and I never say to moms, that this is going to like create your life to be sunshine and unicorns, but it is going to give you the tools to be able to navigate the chaos, both externally and also internally.
Yeah. Yeah. So much of that resonates with me. And I'm so glad that you said the first 2 years, because there's such a misconception, and it's our culture with bounce back culture and whatnot. And like, and everyone's like, oh, 6 weeks, 12 weeks. Like, no, your body really does not regulate. It doesn't even begin to regulate back to its baseline until 2 years postpartum. So if you're
and how many of us are having kids within that time frame, or
Right.
already pregnant again?
Right.
It's like,
yeah.
Of
So
course.
you're already working with the cards stacked against you. I'm so glad that you said that, because the misconception is infuriating. I kind of feel like this is a great segue into what you're doing now. Like you briefly mentioned that you want to start a group for moms with mom rage, but you're doing a lot of work. You're doing a lot of somatic work, inner child work, breath work. Like, tell me about those things and how you're seeing them help you and the women that you're working with.
Yeah. So connecting with your breath, that was probably the first thing that I started to put out into the world, because I wasn't yet completed, or hadn't yet completed, my certification for inner child healing and reparenting. And so that was something that I had gotten my level 1 certification for. And that was so transformational, with being able to access my heart space, being able to access emotions, but also being able to allow those to flow through me. And so breathwork is one of the first things that, especially women that have a little bit of a socioeconomic block or limitation for being able to access this type of work, that is something that I feel really, really empowered and called to have people step into first. Because whether it's in person where I live, or in the virtual spaces, that is something that, again, can help to connect you back to what you're actually experiencing, give you tools to be able to hold that, and give you this kind of, I call it the gateway drug to inner child healing, because it's going to open you up in ways that you're like, I don't know what this is. I want to explore this more, blah, blah, blah. So that was really what came online first. And I still do that once a month in person or virtually. Again, that has been a great resource for me that I use very consistently, and that I, really suggest to my clients first starting out. And then, the inner child one-on-one work that I do either in 4, 6, or 12-month increments. And what's been really funny is that, like, again, going back to the trusting your own intuition, there's all of these like business gurus out there. And even my mentor, she has not yet had kids. And, oh, you got to do weekly, and you got to do it this way. And I'm like, show me another coach that is actually offering this type of work to moms, and let me know if once a week for 90 minutes works for them.
Yeah.
And so it's been this journey of like really meeting women where they're at, because this work is folded into an already very busy and full life, especially, well, whether you're at home caring for your kids or out in the world caring for your kids, this is something that like that flexibility and that fluidity is needed for these women. I tried to launch a group program back in the fall that was 12 weeks, $1,500. The women were like, I want this. And I'm telling you right now, it's not feasible. So what did I do? I rolled it back. We're launching again. It's shorter and it's cheaper. And like, you have to meet women where they're at. It's like the community piece. It may not look like what you envisioned it or what business masterminds say that it has to be, but I am very passionate about this being available for all women, not the 1%, not those that are taking home greater than 6 figures. Every single woman, whether it's the free masterclasses that I put out or these higher ticket one-on-one offerings, like it is available and should be available to everyone. And then really the community piece is really what's coming online now. I felt in the fall this like shift of like, how are you going to make more of an impact? Not from a place of like, I need to be making more money, but like there's something more that you haven't tapped into both personally and professionally. And so again, like taking my hands off the wheel and just being like, guide me wherever I'm supposed to through a series of events, it really became clear to me that like I still had some things to work through with like the beliefs on community.
Yeah.
And also, what would that community look like and what would I offer to that community? I'm not about, bless it, but like I'm not about just getting together to like chit chat and small talk. It's there. It gets to be there. But if we're meeting, if you're taking time out of your busy day as a mom, I want us to go deep and fast as long as like your system can hold that. And so I wanted it to be a space of community, not just to commune because even though that's needed in spaces, but I'm not the person to bring that out into the world. And so Mom Rage, literally, I have a oversized Post-it note that I literally like went to town on. What's today? Friday, Wednesday, after a talk with a new mom because it's needed. And it's like, how does this siphon into other courses? How does this siphon into a TED talk? Like how to like, and that is coming from a place of really fully completing what I experienced and what I now can like continue to be with and guide other women in. And so it feels so organic and so this is it. This is where I was supposed to like come full circle to until the next thing, you know, spurs me forward into maybe something different or something deeper. And so that's really how I'm supporting women, even dads. It's so sweet to have them too in the journey that is right now and just really giving women the permission to take their power back, to let it be hard, to feel the thing and to trust their intuition.
Yeah, there's so much that I love about that. I love that you're still utilizing that type A personality.
Yes, yes. We
And, like-
execute around here, girl.
Yes,
we execute.
yes.
Yeah.
You're still using that. But you're using it in a way that also honors your journey and honors where you came from and the path that you took. And I always love the phrase like we love to see it, but like I'm not a fan of the term silver linings. Anybody who's listened to the podcast will know that I do not like the term silver linings.
Mm-hmm.
I personally don't believe that you went through what you went through so that you can be doing what you're doing now. But the ability and the drive to take what you went through and what you are going through and turn it towards serving others is one of the most beautiful and powerful things that we can do as humans.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that it just it makes perfect sense. It's so on brand for you.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, I'm working on me. How can I channel this so that we can help others like get through this too?
Yeah.
And it also emphasizes that there is another side. It doesn't mean that, like you said, it's sunshine, rainbows, and unicorns.
Oh, no.
But there is another side, and the depth of the guilt and the shame and the sorrow and the despair is not forever.
Absolutely. It's a season. That is one of my other phrases and mantras that I used to have really bad stomach pain growing up. Well, I wonder what that was about. And I would always say to myself, even as a teenager, I will not always feel this way. I remember being in the bathroom. I will not always feel this way. I will not always feel this way. And I use that now because you're right. Women need to hear that this is a season because when you're in it, it feels like a storm that you have no idea when it's going to end. And yeah, it gets to be that. But I think that there is like just a little tiny door opened to also making it light and funny.
Yeah.
I was serious for so long in my healing and in what was happening to me and what had happened to me that now being able to have a co-facilitator that I used to work with, and she would sing when she would get irritated. She would be like, no one is listening to me right now and I want to get in the car. And like things like that. Things like when a child meets you in a tantrum and then you like model and mimic it. And then they're like, what's mom doing? Like we are in it all day long. Why not add a little pattern interrupt that makes you laugh and smile and probably makes your kids smile too? That is a gift of my partner that he has utilized that I've started to try to harness more because this shit is hard enough. Might as well add a little bit of laughter and humor, whether it's dark or light, to the scenario.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
yes. Yeah.
So I think that that's the other permission that we get to give women too, is that, yeah, this work is deep and heavy, but it also can be really, really light. And you get to feel, even in the trenches of a 9 and a 2-year-old, to be able to drop them off, pick them up, whatever. And within your soul feel like I'm doing the best that I can right now. And like, it feels good to allow myself to feel that my best is enough,
Yes.
you know, even in the messiness.
Yes, that is the message. It's okay. So typically, like, I'm bringing us full circle, and typically I wait until the end of the episode. I have 2 questions that I ask my guests that I pick one.
Yeah.
I'll wait until the session's over and I'll pick one. And you've like you've answered both of them already.
Perfect.
So it seems silly. It seems silly, but I think I'll ask this one just to drive the point home and maybe to hone in on just one thing. But like, what do you hope, if only one thing, if my listeners can only take one thing away from your story and your experience, what do you hope they take away?
Trusting your intuition, the whisper that you have, whatever that is. It could be as easy as like, go call the therapist right now. Like, go get in to the office.
Mm-hmm.
It could also be as like edgy as like, you hate this job, walk away. It could be also as crunchy as like, this partner is not for you. You don't have to deal with this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It could be as like heart-centered as like, he's trying to love you, just let him in. Like, I believe wholeheartedly, as much dialogue that's going on in our brain, there are these intuitive, very essence-filled, truth-filled statements, questions, dialogues that are happening. And only a fraction of women are getting more curious about them or allowing them to take up more space in their life. Everything that has brought me to this point, quitting my full-time job, my 6-figure full-time job last June or June 2023, starting this healing work, birthing my kid in a bed, all of that is because of this little whisper that I followed.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot, and I will not ever disregard that. And so we can get into like all of the complexities of the things that we've talked about today, but none of that can ever be lived out or carried out if you're not really trusting that little whisper, or maybe it's a yell now.
Yeah. The only thing that I am going to say, just because of the demographic of listeners that I listen to, is if you're having really scary thoughts and you're having thoughts that seem like they're your intuition that are telling you things that are a little scary, listen to the quieter voice in the background saying, this isn't me.
Mm-hmm.
Please. Because Amanda's message is absolutely beautiful, and I agree 100%. Trust your intuition, trust your gut. Some of my listeners are going to be experiencing certain mental health conditions
Mm-hmm.
that little voice in their head is telling them things that aren't true and that aren't real. So listen deeper and reach out for help.
Yeah. And it's very likely that the intuitive nudges, you will feel it in your heart space, and you will have probably heard it before, and it will feel, because I've had those intrusive thoughts. I have been, I won't say actively suicidal, but I have had those, what you're talking about. And this feels differently, and it may feel scary for a different way because it's really what your heart wants. Right.
Yes.
And so, yes, absolutely love that caveat. And you know the difference as well. 1,000%.
Yes, absolutely. Amanda, I have loved this. This is like such a vibe. I'm not a type A personality, but like, oh my gosh, so much of what you talked about resonated with me. Where can my listeners find you if they would like to learn more about you and the work that you're doing?
Yeah. In this wild world, I've kept it simple. I'm mainly on Instagram, the somatic DPT, traditionally trained as a PT. So our credentials are DPT, David D, Paul P, T, Thomas. I need to actually, I was walking down the hallway yesterday somewhere. Maybe it was at work. And I was like, I got to change those to girls' names. Why are we using guys' names?
Right?
It's so wild. Anyways, so the somatic DPT, all of my links are there. I have a ton of free content there. I always will message new followers. So you can expect a message from me, whether you're going to reach out to me or not. But yeah, that's really the most active way that I connect with people. And because, this world is crazy enough and I have enough on my plate. I do not need a fancy website yet.
Yet. I love it. That will be linked in your show notes. So listeners, please check the show notes so that you can find out more about Amanda. And just thank you so much for your energy and for taking the time out of your Friday morning to meet with me.
No, this was amazing. There's a reason why I scheduled this at 8 a.m. And it's because I knew that it was important. And I love the work that you're putting out into the world. It's again, part of what we need more of. And so I just applaud you for heeding your intuition and your nudge to step out into the world in this way.
Thank you so much. Amanda, thank you so much for sharing your story with me and for the work you're doing to empower other parents, mothers especially. Your energy was very much appreciated on this Friday morning, and I'm hoping I can carry it with me through the rest of my day. Listeners, please be sure to check the show notes to learn more about Amanda and all of the programs she's offering to help moms reclaim their power. You can keep up with us on Quiet Connection by following us on Facebook, Instagram, Rednote, and Threads at Quiet Connection Podcast. You can also find us on Blue Sky at Quiet Connection Pod. You can help our community grow by leaving us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and consider sharing our episodes on social media. Be sure to check out our Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee accounts to support our mission and get exclusive access to bonus episodes and other goodies. To share your personal journey, you can contact us through our website at quietconnectionpodcast.com or by email at quietconnectionppmh@gmail.com. Join us next time when another story is told and you realize you are not alone. I see you.